So this module is all about what-if analysis, which is the spreadsheet is the perfect tool for that. Even before these advanced features we've talked about, what's great about a spreadsheet for what-if analysis, if you change one cell, every formula based on that cell is automatically updated so we can review things. So far we've talked about a couple tools. So the first one was something known as GoalSeek. Okay, GoalSeek allows us to do kind of a simple analysis. It's better than trial and error. It says, hey, I want to set this cell, this target cell, to a certain value by changing this other cell. And we used it with trying to find a break-even point for our income and revenue, the number of units produced. We also used it when we tried to find like an optimal rate. So we use GoalSeek, which is a very simple, it only has 3 variables, very simple tool. Another thing that's nice to do is something called a data table. And a data table, we use both a 1 variable data table and a 2 variable data table. The 1 variable data table says, hey, I want to see the results of these cells, these result cells, whatever it was, and I think we use like total income, total revenue, total expenses, and net income for all these different levels of production, 10,000 units, 15,000 units, 20,000 units. And we can put that in a table. So instead of me typing in 10,000 and saying, hey, this is the value of 15,000, it builds a table for me so I can look at it. And I could build 10, 15, 20 different scenarios, if you will. That was a 1 variable data table. In a 2 variable data table, as the name applies, we're kind of a little bit limited in what we show the results of because we're kind of limited in the dimensions we work with. We have columns and we have rows, and they can represent 2 variables. They can represent, I think we used different levels of production, and I can't remember what the thing on the column was. We used different levels of, different prices. Okay, so we had prices and levels of production, and what would our net profit be? So we only looked at 1 cell. So that was very useful. Today, we're going to learn a couple things depending how far we get. We're going to talk about something called Scenario Manager, okay, or scenario, or however you want to say it. And in a scenario manager or scenario situation, we build various scenarios. We say, what if our economy goes through a growth period or goes through a recessionary period? It doesn't have the same limitations that a 1 variable data table does or a 2 variable data table does. And it's really a way to build in or program various scenarios that we want to look at over a period of time. So I want you guys to go up to where we left off. So I believe that was Creative, I don't know what you guys called yours, but mine's called Creative Miko. Okay. All right, the first thing we're going to do is, remember when we used define names? We're going to define some names here for various cells because I think it'll make our formulas, it'll make our scenario manager a little more clearer. Instead of calling something B4, we'd rather call it units sold. Do you guys remember we did this a couple modules ago? How do I do this? How would I give it the defined name? How would I give B4 the defined name units sold and B5 the defined name price per unit? Dan?
You would do highlight A4 to B5, or then go to data, I believe.
That's under formulas.
Formulas, and then relative. I forget what it's
Well,
called.
we'll go through it.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's 2 ways I can do it. The easiest way to do it is since the name is already to the left, let's just use that name. Let's have Excel do that for us. Or if we wanted to, we could go to B4 and then go up to the name box and type in units sold. But let's have Excel do the work for us. So we're going to highlight these non-adjacent cells, and we do that by hitting the Control key. So I'm going to select A4 to B5, and I'm holding down the Control key, and then I'm going to go down to, laggy here, sorry. A4 to B5, and then we'll go down to A17 through B20, and then finally A24 to A26. So we selected all those non-adjacent, by holding down the control key in any Windows, it allows you to select non-adjacent cells. And then we're going to go up to Formulas. So go up to the Formulas tab. And we're going to go to, here's the Define Name Group. And we're going to say Create from Selection. And in this case, we want to use the left column because that's where the name is. So click on left column and click OK. Do you guys get that or no? What? Let's just try doing one at a time. I'm just going to do this one. Create from selection, left column. Okay, that worked. Let's do A17 to B20. Create from selection, left column. That worked. And then I think we want a B24 to B26. And that worked. I'm not sure why we were getting that error unless I selected something, but if you do them individually, create from selection, it seems like it's worked. So now you'll see if I select on B4, it says unit sold. If I select on B5, it says price per unit. And why this is useful to us is when we build scenarios, it's going to say, what do you want to set this value to? And in the dialog box, if we didn't have a defined name, we just say, what do you want B4? And I don't know what the hell B4 is when I'm in that dialog box. But if it says unit sold, hey, that's good. I know what units sold are, right? Because it talks to me in English, okay? So we define those names. Now, we want to go to the Data tab where our other what-if analysis tools are. And over in Data Tools, we have a what-if analysis, and we're going to go to Scenario Manager. So go to Scenario Manager, or Scenario, or however you say it. And we're going to click Add, okay, because we're going to build a few scenarios. So I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to give these scenarios different names. Okay, and this first one is going to assume nothing really new. So I'm going to say status quo, no changes. And I can define the cells that I want to change. Okay, and the input cells that we're going to want to change in this case are, and these are non-adjacent as well, so B4 to B5. Oops, I got to delete that first. B4 to B5, because we're going to change the units sold and price per unit. And then along with that, we're going to change salaries and benefits, advertising, administrative, and miscellaneous. Okay, so what I want is B4 through B5, comma, B17 through B20. Those are the input cells. Those are the things that I'm going to use to define that scenario. Okay, I'm going to tab over down to comment, and I can name this scenario. I can say this, or I can give a comment. This is the scenario, the current scenario with no changes. And then we want prevent changes selected. And we're going to not select hide. And now it says, hey, what do you want the input values for this scenario to look like? And you notice here in this little dialog box, this is why it was important for us to define the names. if I didn't define the names, that first thing, how it says units sold, would just say B4, which I guess we could look up and say, well, B4 is units sold, but it's nicer to know what that is. So let's go with the first scenario, and I think we have something a little bit different here. We want to go with 24,000 units sold, price per unit of $24. Salaries and benefits, we're going to leave alone, 200,000. Advertising, we're going to leave it alone at 25,000. And administrative, we're going to leave alone at 20,000. And I want to click OK. So that is one scenario added. That's saying if we select that scenario under the status quo, all those input cells will be what we just entered, 24,000, $24, all those good things. Let's add, and I think the book has us add like 5 scenarios, but let's just add 3. Let's add a scenario for expanded operations. So we are going to assume that we have increased growth in our company. So expanded ops. The changing cells are still the same. B4, B5, B17, B20. And I'm just going to write here in the comment, this is a growth scenario. And I'm going to click OK. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want for the growth scenario? So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to sell 30,000 units at a price of $27. Salaries and benefits are going to go up since we are producing more to 270,000. We're going to go crazy with our advertising budget and double it. And our administrative is going to go up to 30,000. And I'm going to click OK. And let's just build one more scenario. Let's build, so we go to add, and we're going to say reduced operations. So maybe we're scaling back for some reason. Reduced ops. I'm just going to change the comment to scaling back. I'm going to click OK. And our units sold, we're going to say we're going to sell 20,000 items at $22 per item. Our salaries and benefits are 180,000. We're going to cut back on our advertising to 20 grand. And we're going to cut back the administrative, well, we're just going to leave it at 20,000. And click OK. Okay. And click close, and we're going to bring that up in a second, but all we've done is said, let's build, and notice in this one, we didn't change, remember the data table, we said the one variable data table, we changed one variable, units sold. Two variable data table, we sold units sold and price. This one we changed, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like at least 5, maybe 6, I can't remember 5, I think we only put 5 in ours. But we changed 5 different things, okay? So this allows us to change multiple things. Now, if I want to see the results of that scenario, I go back up to what if, I can go to Scenario Manager, and let us go to Expanded Ops, and click Show. And what it did, when I clicked Show, is it changed all those variables to what I programmed in. It said, hey, I'm going to sell 30,000 units, price per unit is $27. You see it updated the salaries and benefits and advertising and administrative so that I don't have to do that. So all those things are updated there. If I want to do reducing ops,
We can double click on it, the same as saying show, and it'll automatically invoke that scenario. If I want to edit a scenario, okay, pretty simple to do, or delete a scenario, we can click delete. Let's say we want to edit reduced ops, so click on reducing ops. Click OK because the values really aren't here. And let's say, I don't know, maybe the price per unit goes down to 20. Okay, now all that is useful because if I know, hey, let's see what this scenario is, I can pretty quickly, easily say what happens to reduced ops and look at the spreadsheet and look at the results and the graph updates and all those good things. But what's really useful when I look at what if analysis is if I can see the results side by side. You know, I don't have to, you know, click on it and say, well, look at what it is now, and then click on it again and say, look what it is now. It's better if I can have a report of all the scenarios at once, okay? And that is viewable by something called a scenario summary report, okay? So let's go back up to what if analysis. Let's go to scenario manager, and let's go to summary, okay? You guys see summary here? Click on summary, okay? And there's two things. We're going to do both of these. The first one is something called a scenario summary report. Now I know what my input cells are. They're the things that I set the scenario for, right? The B4, the B5, the B17 through the B20. Here's where I get to see what are the result cells that are important to me, that I want to see the value of. And the result cells, okay, the result cells can be more than one. Remember in the two variable data table, I only had one result cell. It was net income, is where they intersected. Here, in this report, I can get multiple result cells. So the things that are important in here are really that B24 to B26 range. That's where our netting, our total revenue, total expenses, and net income were. So select B24 to B26 and click OK. So if you notice here, it builds a brand new worksheet, and it's an outline form, which I don't really like, but it's an outline form, and it gives us various scenarios, okay? So it says the current values that are in the spreadsheet right now, which is this, 20,000 units sold at $22, and then it gives a listing of every scenario that we ran. The status quo scenario, the expanded ops scenario, the reducing ops. And what that means, if we expand the operations, great, net income is going to go up to $120,550. If we reduce ops, it's not looking so good for us. We're going to lose $51,300. The status quo is the status quo. So you see, this can give us, you know, a good report of multiple items at once. Okay, let's go back to our original data in income statement. And this time, I'm going to go to Scenario Manager, and this time I'm going to go to Summary, and let's go to the Pivot Table Report. And I still want the resultant cells to be B24, B26. I click OK, and it's going to give me a pivot table, okay? And it really only focuses on the resulting cells. So a couple things, you know, it says expanded ops, there's the result cells, total revenue, total income, total expenses. We could fix it up by changing various things, like we could make the number look like a currency. One thing I do want to remove, it assumed report filters should be our B4, B5, our input cells, and it really doesn't do much for me. So let's remove that field. So under the filter area, go to remove field, because I really don't want that filtered at all. Well, we might as well make this currency. So click on any value in the pivot table, right click on it, Go to value field settings. Go to number format. And make it currency. Let's get rid of the decimal places though. Click OK. I only did total expenses. Well, I guess I should do it for the others as well. Okay, what's also nice, so I can see it in a table, but if you guys remember, I can also build this as a chart. So if I click on my pivot table, go to Pivot Table Tools Options, let's go to Pivot Chart, and let's just pick the first one, the clustered column chart, and click OK. So now you can see, our various scenarios here, standard operations, what our revenue is and expenses and net income, reducing ops and status quo. So it allows us to visualize those scenarios, and really what it's about is communicating, hey, well, what if this happens? What does our company look like here? What if this happens? What does our company look like here? Okay. What questions might you have on scenario management? So the tools we have right now for what-if analysis, we have goal-seek, we have a 1 variable data table and a 2 variable data table. And then when we have more than that, when we have other characteristics, we can use scenarios. Okay, and that's what this is. Okay, the last thing we're going to do in this section, and then Monday we'll do an in-class case, is we're going to use a tool called Solver. Which is kind of like goal-seek, but it's kind of like goal-seek on steroids. It's a little more powerful than goal-seek. And I think maybe Miss Rummel uses it in the class. Did anyone ever use Solver for Miss Rummel? No? I thought she used it in cost accounting, no? Did you ever hear of Solver? No? All right, well, we're going to use it today. So let's go back to our income statement. And before we do this, we got to talk about something called elasticity, okay, which we talked about a little bit last class. It's a very important economic principle. Elasticity of demand. What does elasticity of demand mean? And we haven't really factored that in so far to our discussion, but what does elasticity of demand mean? Something is very elastic. If a good is very elastic, what does that mean? Come on, Dr. Timlin would be very upset.
Like the demand can go up and down.
Okay.
It varies a lot.
Okay, if it's very elastic, you're right. If I change the price, demand's going to go down, right, quickly, because if it's very elastic, it means, there's a commodity out there very similar, and if I raise my price, what the hell, everyone's just going to move to this, right? If it's inelastic good, an inelastic good means what? Doesn't matter what the price is, it's not, the demand isn't going to change much, right? Maybe a life-saving drug or something like that. You don't care what the price is, right? So that's an inelastic good. So far when we've been changing price, we've just been saying, well, demand's going to do this, or demand's going to stay the same, but that's not reality in a lot of cases. There is a way that economists quantify elasticity. Okay, and I'm not by any means an economist, but I do understand price elasticity. Okay, so if we look at this, what happens? Okay, well, if I raise the price and demand goes down a little bit, my total revenue probably will still go up, right? If I raise the price $2, but demand only goes down, 500 units, my revenue is still going to go up. But it's going to reach a point where I raise price to such a point that demand's going to go down and my total revenue is going to go down. So if we see this chart up here on the screen, this is total revenue by price. So this is, if I price it
If I price it here, this is going to be my total revenue. If I price it here, there's going to be any demand because it's too expensive. So we want to try to find this point, that point where we maximize revenue. And now, companies do a lot of things to try to figure out the elasticity of demand for their product or service. Amazon does this all the time by doing what? They change prices. They can do it because it's online. They change the price a few dollars and see what happened to demand that day versus that day, right? And they say, hey, we went down $2 and demand went up from this value to this value, and they figure that out. There is a nice little formula for that, okay? There's a formula that's used, and we're not going to really go into that formula too much. But what we do is we say elasticity is defined by the change in demand, the percentage change in demand, divided by the percentage change in price, okay? The percentage change in demand divided by the percentage change in price. So if we change price, I don't know, 100%, we double price, but demand only changes 10%. Okay, think about that scenario. If we change demand 100%, change price 100%, so we double the price, but demand only goes down 10%. That would result in, let's think about that. That would result in 10% divided by 100%, which would be 0.1. What would we say about that? If I double the price, but the demand only goes down by 10%, what would we say about that? Is that elastic or inelastic?
Inelastic.
What's that?
It would be inelastic.
It's inelastic, right? Because it didn't change much, okay? It didn't change much. Now, what if I change the price by 100% and demand goes down by, let's say, 150%? Well, that looks a little bit different. 150%, it went down by our price changed 100%, I get 1.5. Okay, 150 divided by 100%, 1.5. What would you say about that? Is that elastic or inelastic? What would you say about that? I changed price 100% and my demand went down 150%. Did the market respond to that price? It did. It's a very elastic good, okay? And it says 1.5. So, we always like kind of a barometer, okay? And barometer basically for elasticity or point is if it's at 1.0. Values less than 1.0 we call inelastic. There's different degrees of inelasticity, right? And values greater than 1.0 we call elastic because they respond more heavily. Now this isn't an econ class, but these are kind of the terms that are used. If the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, we say it's relatively inelastic. Large changes in price cause only small changes in demand. If it's perfectly inelastic, elasticity equals 0. Changes in price have no impact on demand. This is like something that people have to have, right? People have to have water, things for survival. You don't care what the price is, you pay it. If it's relatively inelastic, means price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Relatively elastic, demand is very responsive to change in price, like this 2.0. If it's exactly 1.0, we call it unit elasticity, right? Because any percentage change in price is a resultant change in demand. And if it's perfectly elastic, large elasticity value. So there's not really a range for this, but 2.0 would probably qualify, 3.0 would probably qualify, okay? So there is also a way for us then, if we know the ratio of elasticity for our product, okay, if we know it's 1.0, and I raise the price, let's give you this scenario. Let's say my ratio is 1.0. If I raise the price 10%, what's going to happen to demand? If it's a 1.0 ratio, if I raise the price 10%, what's going to happen to demand? It'll drop 10%, right? If this were 1.5, okay, if this were 1.5, okay, and I raise the price 10%, what would happen to demand? If it's 1.5
and I raise the price 10%, what's going to happen to demand? It's going to go down by how much?
15.
15%. Very good. 10% times 1.5. So there's a formula, and we're not going to have to memorize this formula or anything like that. But we can say, look at the old demand plus, okay, 1 times 1 plus the elasticity, that's the 1.0 or the 1.2, times 1 minus the new price, the old price, because that'll give us the percentage change, okay? And then that'll give me the new demand. So we're going to factor that into our spreadsheet. We haven't factored that in at this point, but we're going to factor that in. So let's go to our income statement, okay, that we've been working with so far. Let's go to the income statement that we've been working with so far. I'm going to need some more room, so I'm going to take A3 through B26. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to move it down to A6 to B29. So I'm going to select on A6 and go paste, and it's going to move it down 3 rows. Okay, so take that whole block of stuff, cut it, and paste it down starting in A6. And what's beautiful about that is, beautiful about this spreadsheet is all those formulas that are predicated off those values automatically get adjusted when I move that, which is very nice to see. Okay, so I don't have to go in there and screw around with that. Now what we want to add, we also want a new column. So let's take B6 through B29 and copy it over to C26, or C6 through C29. So just so we have 2 here. So in C6, we're going to enter new price. So this is the new price scenario. Also in C11, in C19, and C26. Now in cell A3 we want to label here, and we're going to label it PE of demand. So this is where we're going to put, in B3, this is where we're going to put the ratio. And whatever the hell we're selling here, someone has figured out our price elasticity of demand is 1.2. So enter 1.2 in the cell B3. What that means is if our price goes up 10%, demand is going to go down 12%, right? If it goes up 100%, our demand is going to go down 120%. So a factor of 1.2, whatever the price change. So we would say it's elastic, but it's not, you know, real elastic, but it's elastic, right? Plastic, 1.2 means it's elastic. Okay, it's greater than 1.0. In cell C7, this is where I want to put my new formula for what happens to demand under the new price. Let's go back to, oh no, we're good there. So here's where I want to put that formula I showed you on the board. We're going to say the new price is equal to B7, which is my units sold, my old units sold, times 1 plus B3, which is my price elasticity of demand ratio, times 1 minus the price difference, so, or the price change, C8 divided by B8. Oh. Let me go back up there so you can see it. There you go. So what that factors in is it figures out the percentage change of the price. That's what this is, C8 divided by B8. Subtracts that from 1, okay? Multiplies that by that price elasticity of the range.
So if it's 90% of the price, that's 1 minus 90%, that's 10% change, multiplies that by B3, and then multiplies that by the old unit sold to change it appropriately. Now if I hit enter, it doesn't surprise me that it's still 24,000 units. Why does it not surprise me that it's still 24,000 units? Because I did not do what? I did not change the price, right? So of course it's going to remain, a demand of 24,000 units. Let's say we raise the price 10% and go up to 2640. I raised the price 10%. What's going to happen to demand? According to this, it's going to go down by 1.2 of 10% is 12%, right? It's going to go down 12%, or roughly, 2,600 units. Okay, something like that.
Can you go back to that formula document?
Sure. So now we have, if we go down to our net income, that's really, probably what we're most concerned with. We do have factored in what happens to demand when we change the price. If I go up to $26.40, is it a better deal than what we're doing right now, or worse deal? It's a better deal, right? Even though we sell less, we make more money, right? 69,000 versus 54,000. Let's try another value. Let's say, okay, what if we charge 30 bucks? Let's go up to 30 bucks and see what happens. Okay, well, now demand went to 16,800. Hey, but I'm still making more, right? I'm still at 62,000 as compared to 56,000. I'm doing less work. Things have gone down. My variable expenses have gone down. Let's go up to 35. Let's go big. Well, my demand really takes a hit there. It goes down to 10,800. And all of a sudden, I'm only making $1,180. So I could do that, right? I could type in some values and try to find the maximum value. I could keep going. You could do trial and error. As humans, we could do that. Say, okay, this is worse, this is better, this is worse, this is better, until we zero in on something that is the best, right? The best way. Okay? But we also have a tool. So you guys good where we're at? We also have a tool that does that. If you guys remember back from Management 101, or I'm not sure where you get it, but did you ever hear of Frederick Winslow Taylor? You ever hear of Frederick Winslow Taylor? What was he the pioneer of?
Manufacturing something.
Yeah, manufacturing was involved in. I don't know. Do you guys have Dr. Macklin here? No, you have
No, we had
Mr. Eklund? Yeah, he talked about something called scientific management. You guys ever hear of scientific management? And basically, he proposed that there is one best way to do something, an optimal way. It's OBW, one best way. And he did all kind of studies in like manufacturing, like the best shovel size to use for men that shovel coal all day. Like, is it a big flat shovel? Is it a round shovel? All those things. And he did experiments and said, this is the optimal way. Well, Solver, what we're going to use Solver, is a tool that arrives at the optimal way. It's called an optimization model. Optimization because it arrives at the optimal value. Okay? Now, many of you probably don't have it installed. So we're going to have to take a little segue here and have it installed. If you go to add-ins, where's the data? That's under data, I'm sorry. If you go under data, the data tab, in the far right, you have a group, I don't know what the hell that's called, but you have that group. You guys probably have data analysis up there, yes? Do you have Solver up there? Oh, you do? Everyone? Everyone has Solver? Okay, good. If you did, we'd have to turn it on, but everyone has it. Okay. So then let's go and use Solver for this deal. So click on Solver, and it brings up a dialog box. And there are three things to every optimization model. The first thing is we have an objective cell. This is the thing that we're trying to either maximize, get as high as we can, or minimize, get as low as we can. We can do minimization models as well. In this case, what do you think we want to maximize? What do you think we want to make as big as it can be? What cell, what one reference is the cell we want to maximize, make as big as it can be? Allie? Right, net income, okay, for the new one, right? So we're going to click on the little spreadsheet, and we're going to go to C29. And we want to maximize that. We want to make that as big as we can, right? We want as most money. We're greedy bastards. We want as much money as we can get. Okay? What is the thing that I'm currently changing? What is the thing that I'm currently changing?
Price.
I'm changing price. So I could manually do it, or I could let Solver do it for me. So I'm going to say by changing variable cells, and that's the new price. So I'm going to say, where's that at? That's up in C8. Okay. Now often in real world, real life, when we have an optimization model, we are bound by constraints, right? I would love to make an infinite amount of money. I'd love to produce an infinite amount of goods and make an infinite amount of money. But I'm bound by the constraints of real life, right? I only have so much time, I only have so much materials, right? There's only so much demand out there, right? Because if I wanted to maximize this, I'd say, charge the highest value, produce the most things. But we know that's not real life. That's not the things of business. So we're going to add some constraints, some things, some assumptions that we have to adhere to. In this plant, or the assumption we're working under, is that we're not going to ever make less than 15,000 units of something, because less than 15,000 units, it really changed the dynamics of our plant. We have to lay off people, all that good stuff. So one constraint we work under is demand is, we're not going to go below $15,000, 15,000 units in production. The other thing, we don't have capacity to go over 35,000 units in production. So those are two constraints that are bounding this solution. So we're going to add those in, okay? And the way we do that is under the subject to constraints. We're going to click Add, and I'm going to say C12, which is our units produced, has to be less than or equal to, you see this drop down, less than or equal to 35,000. Okay, so I'm saying units produced, which is C12, has to be less than or equal to 35,000. Click Add, and it goes away, but I promise you it went into the constraint box. And then I'm going to add another constraint. I'm going to say C12, again, has to be greater than or equal to, so I'm going to change my relational operator, 15,000. And click Add. And then I'm going to click Cancel, which doesn't sound like something you should do, but please do it. And it goes back to our little thing. So think about what we're doing here. We're saying we want to maximize our net income by changing price, and we always want to produce somewhere between 15,000 and 35,000 units of this product. We could do trial and error ourselves, or we could make Solver do it for us. Let's make Solver do it for us. So the moment of truth is here. Click on Solve. Okay. It comes back, hopefully, and says, hey, I found a solution for you. All constraints and optimality conditions are satisfied. I click OK, and it tells me the best price to charge is not something that I did through trial and error. It basically did it for me. The best price to charge is $27.41. If I charge $27.41, my demand goes down to 19,911 items. However, my net income goes up to $70,373. So it's an extra roughly $14,000 for me. Okay? Save this where you're at. I know it's time to leave. We will on Monday. We'll do some exercises. I know, this stuff's a little more complex than some of the things we've been doing, but I hope you can see how powerful and useful it can be. So we'll probably do some review exercises on Monday. Also, we'll use, probably do the in-class case together. And then if we have any time, you can use it as a lab. Have a great weekend.